Okay. So now this is the guest I've been waiting for a couple of months. I'm excited to have him on. It's John Ramirez. He's I say UFO expert, but he's more interestingly a former CIA agent. John, you worked for the CIA for 25 years in the Directorate of Science and Technology?
Yeah, that's right. I was never an agent. We're not agents, we're officers. Agents are like what we call confidential informants in the police force. You know, a CI is not a police force officer. An agent is not a member of the CIA. They're people we hire overseas to give us information. So I was a CIA officer in the Directorate of Science and Technology and in the Directorate of Intelligence, and also served in the ODNI National Counterproliferation Center from 84 to 2009. So yes, it's 25 years.
So you're a man of substance. You're not a nutbag. You know what you're talking about.
Well, I would say that I've encountered a lot of information concerning the UFO UAP topic as part of my normal day job. And so I wasn't an expert or anything. There's no one at CIA, which I would call an expert in this. But in so doing, our regular day jobs of intelligence collection and analysis and intelligence reporting, we do come across this phenomenon, and we have come across this phenomenon for decades.
Now, like this month, that's why it's newsworthy. This month, I'll give you the big jumble of the bureaucracy here. The House Intelligence, Counterintelligence, Counterproliferation Subcommittee held hearings, which is not normal. And even top intelligence officials in the Pentagon said that most, but not all phenomena can be explained. Can you explain that?
I would take it this way. Anytime you ask a member of the intelligence community a question, they would literally answer the question. And so when they say most can be explained, what they're not saying is the explanation. And Congress, this particular subcommittee of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, the C3, was previously more immersed into these kind of threats. And so when they meaning the Department of Defense officials, said that most can be explained, the follow-up question, if I was sitting on that subcommittee, I would ask, okay, what are your explanations? And they didn't pursue it.
So explain, John. I mean, we were treated to a bunch of videotape of things that don't seem to behave in ways that we understand physical science to be. So what are we seeing?
Well, what you saw was a very poor video, the worst possible probably, of the holdings by what was collected by the UAP task force, which was instituted in 2020 and finished its work in 2021 with that preliminary assessment. And we learned that there were 144 events that the UAP task force run by the Office of Naval Intelligence studied. And they just picked one which was like the worst possible. You didn't see much of anything. Just this object that did do some maneuvering like very fast, but they explained as, the fighter jet was going this speed, and this object moved relative to the fighter jet. It could have been that, but they didn't really come up with a satisfying explanation of the other videos that they have in their holdings.
You, in your intelligence gathering, your 25 years in the CIA, is there alien life visiting this planet?
I would take the word alien out of that and just say, are there advanced civilizations visiting our planet, not necessarily alien? And are they not just visiting, or have they been here all the time? That's the part of the narrative that the Department of Defense is not addressing. But if you talk to former CIA officers, and I'll mention his name because he's been in the public sphere, his name is Jim Semivan. And if you ask Jim Semivan what's going on, he'll come up with two hypotheses that he believes is happening. And when he says, I believe this is what is happening, he has clearances still. I do not. So he says interdimensional hypotheses and the idea that something is coming to us that we can't explain that could be interdimensional in nature. And the other is the Ultra-Terrestrial Hypothesis. And by ultra-terrestrial, that is UT, these are advanced civilizations that may have been here a long time before humanity arrived. And that is the technology we're seeing. And there's the concept of something called the Breakaway Civilization. You know, you see in myths and legends of the ancient peoples, they always had the gods fighting each other, and one side wins, the other side gets thrown out. And the Breakaway Civilization is the one that got thrown out. And more of the Christian tradition and the Judaic tradition, to go back in the Genesis text, you have a battle between good and evil, God and Satan Satan or Lucifer, the bringers of light, were thrown out, fallen. And that kind of coincides with a lot of ancient texts. So is that what we're seeing is ultra-terrestrials? People have been here longer than we have and may have had some input into our development, into our evolution. Now, if you're a Christian, you believe in Genesis, you will believe that God created man from his own image. Let us make man in our image. And so if you translate that into like the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis, that means that beings more advanced than us had some input into how we turned out. And some of those beings wanted to be worshipped and others wanted to elevate us.
Wait a minute, what does that have to do with like supersonic machines being caught on videotape?
Yeah, why would they be coming back?
Maybe those supersonic machines caught on videotape belong to these ultra-terrestrial civilizations that many folks who encounter like these beings, who say, I've encountered these beings, I've been abducted, always point out to these tall Nordics. And the tall Nordic narrative is something that might be associated with some of these advanced beings.
Do you have any evidence of that? Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question. First of all, you keep saying advanced. So advanced, define advanced. Is that advanced in terms of to the level that we see ourselves as humans on Earth? Or is that advanced in terms of being greater, either in intelligence or capability beyond that? And when you talk about the good versus evil, are we possibly seeing a proliferation of some of that in the events that we're seeing? Is that maybe a different form of these beings?
Well, I'd say the first part of your question, yes, that's exactly what it means. The idea that they're more advanced than humans.
Okay.
And they came to us advanced and they created us, and we are not as advanced, but we're getting there. And what tipped the tipping point was that humanity discovered how to destroy itself and the planet with nuclear weapons. And coinciding with that, a lot of these sightings do occur over our nuclear facilities. A lot of these sightings occur over nuclear ICBM bases, which was mentioned in the hearing. The Pentagon declined to address that. And the second part of your question, I don't know. That's completely hypothetical. You'll have to ask a sociologist or a psychologist or someone who deals with the human mind and human behavior. I can't explain human behavior based on what we're seeing in UAPs.
Now, reconnaissance over nuclear sites would seem to me to suggest that this is some kind of human military operation. Couldn't this be the Russians or the Chinese or the United States secret weapons program itself?
No, and here's why. Because the Russians have complete oversight over our nuclear weapons program as we do theirs. And in spite of the fact that right now we may be having a war of words and a war of weapons in Ukraine, the fact remains that there are treaties in place between the United States and the Russian Federation dealing with the monitoring of our nuclear programs, including nuclear missiles. So we visit their missiles and their silos, and they visit our missiles and our silos.
But wouldn't that be a reason to create a super machine to get around the treaty to give you an advantage?
Well, they don't have that super machine because that's the job of the CIA, is to look into the programs that they have in development in their versions of 51. to see what is coming online in terms of an advanced weapon. And so that is the job of the intelligence community, particularly the military intelligence community, the Defense Intelligence Agency. What do the Russians have coming online that is advanced? And we have a similar type of intelligence collection of the Chinese and any other country for that matter. So I can categorically rule out that it is Russian technology doing this. And if it was Russian technology, they would have completely obliterated Ukraine in no time flat, and they're not using that. So we do have monitoring of each other. And so because of this monitoring, because of the fact that when they launch an ICBM as a test, the Russians tell us that they're launching an ICBM as a test. And so we're there ready to collect all of the technical data, and they actually exchange tapes, the data tapes, the telemetry tapes, and we receive those telemetry tapes, and we do the same for the Russians.
I see.
John, are you suggesting that we're spending more time and money covering something up as opposed to maybe going out and finding it? Because I would think if there's these little UFOs or unidentified things flying around the sky, we would maybe look for more things. Or do you suggest that these aliens, like the way you suggested, kind of sounded like Marvel's Eternals, that movie? Are you supposing that they're like the Illuminati and in charge of everything?
Well, that is a long bridge to cross. That bridge has not been built by the government. That's an intriguing thought, however, because a lot of, I think from the CIA perspective, we deal more with the consciousness aspects of the phenomenon. We deal with the human potential aspects of the phenomenon, meaning when people see this phenomenon, something happens to them internally. Something happens to them psychologically, health-wise. Some suffer health effects, others get healed of.
Have you seen a spaceship in a hangar or
No.
an alien body on ice or anything like that?
No, I have not. I am what is known as an experiencer of the phenomenon, meaning I'm one of the people who have seen orbs or have seen craft. But this was not in relation to my job at CIA. Having said that,
what do you mean you saw it in your private life, not your professional life?
Yeah, I've seen those in my private life, but to address the professional life side of the question, yes, I do know that the U.S. government has knowledge of these orbs and have collected data from these orbs, which then became part of the holdings of information about what we're seeing. So I do know that there were orbs. Now, as far as craft, let's say Roswell, another CIA officer who is retired claimed in the public media, went on Coast to Coast AM, if I can mention another show, and said that he has seen those Roswell Files at CIA headquarters. There were craft of non-human origin, and there were bodies of non-human bodies in the files. And he wrote a novel about what he saw. He completely made it into a novelization of what he saw, added some science fiction elements to it. But he has stated that if you read behind the lines, this is what's happening.
I'm not so sure. I don't know. I'm not convinced, but
yeah.
If there are interdimensional beings, people that can fly through a black hole from an alternate universe, should we be afraid?
Well, if they wanted to destroy the Earth would have been destroyed. I think they're more like they consider us their children, quote unquote, and that they're more interested in that we don't destroy ourselves.
Terrible parent.
And that's why the interventions that they have with our nuclear forces, both here and in Russia.
Well, it could be like the Twilight Zone, where we're actually like a farm, like piglets. Remember that? Remember the book, To Serve Man?
Yeah.
Could be that.
Right. There are philosophers who have applying what's known as the simulation hypothesis, that we're living in a simulation. Mathematically, it's kind of hard to prove. I don't know if there's a proof for it. But again, the point being is that it is difficult to explain. But I believe the government has a cogent explanation of most of what they're seeing. And I don't believe the government is forthcoming in that yet, because there are too many bridges to be built over too many large chasms that have been dug over the 75 years since Roswell happened.
Yeah, I don't think the government would be covering this up, Mark.
No.
You know why? Because they're holding hearings. Otherwise, you just shut it all down.
Right. Now, I'd say that, don't forget, the government's composed of 3 branches. And so you have the executive branch holding on to the information and not releasing it. And you have the legislative branch, which we elect every 2 years, a new Congress, wanting to release information. So you have this clash of purposes, perhaps, where one side wants to keep it down, keep it tamped down. The other the other side wants to be more forthcoming, because there's 2 pieces of legislation. There's just the National Defense Authorization Act of this fiscal year was the one that most people heard about, but buried in the budget, the entire budget of the federal government, the Consolidated Appropriations Act, buried in it is the Intelligence Authorization Act, which is completely different from the military side. So I'm getting wonky here, but it's important to consider. NDAA deals with
He's almost got me believing.
IAA deals with the intelligence side, on the civilian side of intelligence. And
all right, John, you're getting too wonky. You're getting too wonky. This is just a regular people show. So let me ask you, just so everybody knows, you will be testifying before Congress next month?
No, absolutely not. I will have nothing to say to Congress because I have no current information. And the people who have current information, that's Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon. Those 2 gentlemen need to testify.
So sum total, I'll get you out of here. We're going a little bit over. I gave you my word. You watched the hearings earlier this month. Sum total, did we learn anything? Are we closer to the truth?
Congress is closer to the truth. They have always been closer to the truth. We, the people, are not. There will be more hearings, and there will be on the Senate side and the House side of intelligence. We saw the House side. There's also the Senate side of intelligence. They will be holding hearings. And on the armed services side of both the Senate and House, they will be holding hearings. So we got 1 committee's hearings, but there are 3 more committees that have purview or oversight of this UAP topic. And I expect to have more hearings over the course of the next, not just this year, but several years.
If I could ask you to take the politics out of it, take a little of the intellect out of it. You and I are having coffee at a shop around the corner from your house.
Yeah.
Give me the thumbnail. If I said, John, what's happening? What would you tell me? Take all the other stuff out. Thumbnail. What is that?
Okay, what's happening is that currently military pilots have encountered craft of unexplainable performance that are transmedium. They fly in the air, they fly in space, they fly from space into the air and back into the ocean. The ocean has a significant presence of this UAP phenomenon occurring. And in fact, in the state of Michigan, of course, there's several sightings that have occurred of craft coming out of, for example, Lake Erie. And
landing in Detroit.
Maneuvers and so forth. So, I mean, it's transmedium, it's under the water, it's in the air, it's in space. There's something flying that is not human-made. Right. And the government would like to know what's flying up there. Having said that, there are parts of the government who do know, who are not disclosing that, even to the government.
And you, as a former CIA specialist, have seen evidence in your professional life, and you've encountered orbs in your personal life. So you know as a matter of life experience that they're out there.
That is an extremely fair statement.
They are out there.
Me, personally, yes, you captured it in a nutshell right there.
My brother, and you said, we the people are getting closer to the truth, except some of us may not be people. Whoa.
That's intriguing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for being with us. John Ramirez, former, what is it, CIA
officer.
Yes,
sir.
And a general UFO expert. Mm-hmm. Thank you, brother. And I'm going to get your address and send you a nice treat from Detroit, a flying Coney kit. Okay. Thanks, John.
All right. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks,
everyone.
John. Nice meeting you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
They're out there.